here to share the stories and reflections of many different Vermont schools here today. So we're so honored that you could take the time today and hear about the impact that this legislation is having in our schools and learn about our efforts to build our understanding and support for flexible pathways and the personalization of learning in Vermont. I'm really so proud to have grown up in a state with such forward-thinking legislation and to be part of a group that's doing such significant work to make the legislation as successful as possible. I'm Morgan McIver, a senior at Twinfield Union School, who you will be hearing from later, and also a voting youth member on the Vermont State Board of Education. And we're so pleased to welcome the Secretary of Education, Rebecca Holcomb, here with us today. And she's here to offer some of her thoughts and reflections to begin our time together.
Thank you, and I have to say, as Secretary of Education, one of my greatest privileges is working with folks like Morgan and Dylan, who's also here. And I think it's worth noting, those of you who are in the audience, that both Morgan and Dylan, I think, came through this group, and they are both now the members of the State Board. And I think that tells you something very powerful about the capacity of the work that's taking place here to really develop student voice. And at the end of the day, if this is about educating students to go on and protect, develop, and nurture a very strong Vermont civic life and economic life, it really is about educating students to exercise a voice in the future of their own lives and in their communities. So I just think that's a tremendous tribute. We talk a lot about lagging indicators of things you can't manipulate to make yourself look good, and I think the fact that so many voices have come out of this group and now exercise voice at the state level is a tremendous tribute to you as individuals, but it's also a tribute to the power of this kind of conversation. So my hat is off to all of you. It's tremendous, and we're really proud. And I'm really proud to be part of a state where we actually value student voice. And when I go around to schools, one of the things I often do first is I ask students to tell me how I would know that their school was a good school. And I can tell you that the students are on point. They can tell you faster than the grown-ups in the building what the best measures are. And my hope moving forward, and that's not I'm not trying to diminish the many wonderful adults who are part of those conversations, but they tell it like it is, and it's unvarnished, and it really is to the point. And I just came from a meeting at the agency. One of the things that we've been doing is trying to develop education quality reviews, which are not just some of the data that we've been looking at, but also really field visits where we actually encourage teachers and community members to go across schools and look at the work that's being done and think about what a good school is and how we can capture that. And we're going through all the input we've gotten from a number of public sessions. And one of the things that people were really focused on was personalized learning and Act 77 and some of the multiple flexible pathways, and how we would know if a school was really leveraging those incredibly powerful tools to really help students achieve their potential and carve their own path through life. So I want you to know that this work is so important. It's something we care about deeply, so deeply that we're really grappling with how to capture that and how to really speak to the tremendous work that's taking a place in schools across the state to really further these goals. And also just to sort of invite you, because that is actually one of the few initiatives where we haven't had a lot of student voice. And if any of you are interested in participating and giving some input, please email me, and I'll find a way to have your voice in how we recognize some of this work at the state level across the state. So really do take that opportunity. I would be remiss if I didn't add to the tremendous points Helen wanted me to emphasize by not starting by talking about John Fisher, who has been one of our internal advocates for flexible pathways in Act 77. And John has done tremendous work to really realize this by really helping to lay and work closely with individuals like Peter Peltz, who will speak in a minute, to lay the policy foundation for some of the tremendous work that's taking place across the state. There is a huge problem, though, when people do really good work. And the problem with good work is that it gets noticed. And part of what John has been increasingly asked to do is represent the really groundbreaking work that Vermont has done with your help and your input but to represent it across the country. And unfortunately for Vermont, but really it's a tribute to John's work and your work with him, John's been asked to work at the national level with the Gates Foundation to support implementing this kind of initiative, but in other states as well. So I offer that both to honor John and the tremendous work he's done, and to tell you that we are completely committed to working with you to make sure it continues, because we know how valuable it is. But also just to let you know that this is another case where tiny little Vermont is shaking the country. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that when you've had a voice here, you actually are having a voice nationwide. And that work was recognized, and it is now something that the Gates Foundation is pretty committed to trying to support and scale up nationwide. So you've all heard about how a little butterfly fluttering its wings can cause a tidal wave halfway around the world. That's what you're doing in Vermont when you engage in these kinds of very powerful conversations about what matters for kids and how we actually make it a reality in schools. So that's a huge compliment to you as well. So with that, I want to turn to the challenge that we have now. We have this tremendous and brilliant policy architecture that was really the fruit of collaboration between the governor's office, the legislature, multiple parties, stakeholder groups like yourselves, to really come together and try to articulate a vision for our students. But we all know, and the agency deeply believes, that any policy is really as good as the implementation. So what matters now is how we put the legs on that work and make it actually happen for every kid in every school in the state. And that work is just beginning. It really is just beginning. And we're hoping that the quality review process and those site visits will help us share ideas and scale up and do some lateral innovation about how to do this well. But we also know that we can't do it without a very ambitious and aggressive communications approach that builds not just public understanding, but also public involvement and support in making this happen. And that's where I think you play a really, really critical role. One of the things I value so much about the work of this group is that you really understand the importance of making sure that young people are really involved in shaping this learning. You know, I had a wonderful email this morning from an 8th grader actually in Bethel, and it was all about the testing requirements in the state and how they are, he had some strong opinions that were well and respectfully worded. But one of his points was that testing doesn't capture all we care about. And I don't think I need to tell this group that we all agree. And one of the things that I was struck, though, by the way he worded it, was that this child, in writing this letter, was actually exhibiting one of the skills that we care about most, which is the ability to articulate your position and advocate for it in powerful places where you're going to be heard and make a difference. And that's really at the heart of your work. And we know that if we really do want this initiative and initiatives like this to have legs, we need young people like yourself who are developing that critical skill, which is really hard to demonstrate on a test, but we know is going to get you farther in life, and we know is going to make Vermont a better place for all students moving forward. So you are perhaps our greatest untapped potential for change and for improving schools in the state. And I really look forward to making sure that we keep your voice at the table through the state board, which is one public way to do it, but through public input in all the forums that I hope we can create together. Again, I can't emphasize enough, I'm proud that Vermont is once again a leader in both policy development and really taking some risks to figure out different ways of doing school that really help our students discover new opportunities, new interests, and really push them in a way that furthers their own personal goals. We need to build public support and understanding of what this initiative is beyond schools and beyond the people in this room. We need to help work with different partners at different institutions to try to help people understand what it means and what the potential is. And today you're going to hear about our statewide campaign, Shaping Our Future Together. And you need to know that we're really the first state in the country that is embarking on this kind of coordinated effort to support this kind of school change. So you are really blazing a trail for others, and we're hoping that John will do a lot of work to help voice that across the country. The Agency of Education, working together with the State School Boards Association, has joined forces to ready our schools and communities for what you know are the big changes ahead of us in order to best meet the needs of our children. And I can tell you right now that I don't know exactly what that will look like, but I'm okay with that, because I think it's through our collaboration, through partnering with students, partnering with school boards, partnering with leaders and educators in classrooms, that's how we're going to develop and innovate and create the models that get us where we need to go in a rapidly changing world. Our approach does include a research-based communications approach, powerful dialogue strategies, and this kind of authentic opportunity for youth and adult partnership at its core. This model serves Vermont well, and it also informs all the statewide, regional, and national conversations we have. One of the things that's been happening recently is we're starting to see representatives of other state agencies of education actually come to Vermont and just sit in quietly in meetings just to observe what's being done. And I think that's kind of exciting. I don't want to let it go to our heads, but I do want to keep it as a little bit of motivation to keep doing this good work. Since we, by that I mean the agency and the legislators, largely live both in the realm of policy, we don't always hear how the work that's been done, the policy architecture that's been developed here actually plays out on the ground. So we have this wonderful set of laws and policies. How are you experiencing that? And part of coming here is to hear from you and hear compelling stories from your own experience and from the experience of your teachers from 5 high schools who've been really engaged in deep work to further this shared agenda we have. And hearing from you, hearing your stories of this work and how you're experiencing it and living it and making it real helps inform our efforts to support the work moving forward and sometimes when necessary how to advance the policy structure in which you operate. So with that, I want to make sure I leave plenty of time for Peter Peltz, and he will share us a bit of the history of Act 77, because really he is the person who brought this, really shepherded it through, and brought this to the floor for a vote in 2013, and we all owe him a great thank you for that work. So.
Peter Peltz. I was in this building for 8 years, and last year was my last year. Did I touch him off? I'll stay away from it. And I'm sort of to describe the kind of the genesis of this Act 77, which I think in time will become what will be seen as probably landmark legislation that far exceeds what is currently being discussed in terms of governance and administration and merging and whatnot. I think in terms of what we did, in terms of transforming how education is going to be delivered and the expectations for students when they graduate, which was totally based on Carnegie units. And for those of you who don't know about Carnegie units, it's really based just on seat time and the number of hours you've sat there and the credits you've accrued as a result, and that's what gets you out of school. We're really looking at an entirely different system and looking at performance-based type of education. So where did this all come from? I think it was around 2008, I'd heard about the New England Secondary School Consortium and asked to be appointed on that board. I think Tim Donovan was chancellor of the State Board of Education, and I was on the board. Encouraged me, and there was others, certainly John Fisher and Rayanne Knopf and others that were in the agency that were all part of this. And one of the most compelling issues that was shared by 5 states in New England, except for Massachusetts was not part of that consortium, was the number of high school students that really weren't focused on education and what it was going to do for them when they got out of school. And that could, in some schools, be in the 30 to 40% area, which is an alarming figure when you think of these kids getting out of school without any idea what they're going to do after graduation. And all these New England states shared that, and they were looking at ways to address it. So Nellie May and Gates and others were helping in this effort. And it was so interesting to be with other people, legislators and administrators and whatnot, that from different states sharing all different ideas and encouraging each other, and that really helped a lot to give us the sort of the encouragement and structure to proceed. So Act 77 was signed into law and by the governor. Shumlin, and I believe it was June 6, 2013, and that. So it was, let me. We also were talking about dual enrollment, and that was really the primary focus beforehand in the state. And dual enrollment, where if you're probably all familiar with that, you can take college courses as credit, and you could be funded. And I was part of a summer study group that was probably 2012 thereabouts. And it was primarily looking at how to fund it and how many credits to offer, and this. But we really didn't get into what we know is now the performance-based type of system for graduation. And And we've awarded 2 credits for 2 courses which I think is about 6 credits through dual enrollment. And it's interesting to see after the fact what's happened. We never brought in the student voice into this discussion. The importance of student voice in regards, if you're doing personalized learning plans, it's hard to imagine that you wouldn't consider the value of student voice in this process. And we were looking at it just purely as policy and how we can deliver it. But it's really fun to be outside of the State House and to hear from teachers and students and see how jazzed they are about this new approach to education. And I think it's really going to take hold, and it is taking hold. And the other part I really like about it is really driven at the local level. We're not telling you what you have to. We're going to say you've got to have certain assessment, skills or accomplishments. But beyond that, how you deliver it will be done at the local level, which I think is huge. I think that's enough. But this is really going to be driven by you and the people you're working in school. John Fisher was also a tremendous advocate for what was happening in tech centers, and I think tech centers is an example of something sort of non-traditional and how to get kids engaged in what they're doing. And we have terrific tech center programs. For those at Hazen, we have the forestry program, which is a satellite program that's a tremendous program and is really working well. So this is going to go some serious distance, and it's great to have been part of it. I can just tell you it was amazing to present this on the floor, to have one question on this bill and to have it passed by voice, which for a huge education bill is almost unheard of, but that's the kind of support it had. There was really no. I remember one House member in appropriations said, all you have to do is be in a high school hallway, and you know that this is the way to go. A lot of kids just aren't there, and this is going to make a difference. And I think that for that reason and many more, that's why it got such strong support. So I'm glad you're here as an example of where you're taking this. Morgan and Dill are examples of how this is being done at the state level, at the state board. Great voices, great involvement, and thank you all for coming here. And I think this is just the beginning of a major change, and it's going to really make a difference for Vermont. Thanks.
My name is Helen Beatty. I am the director of Up for Learning, which was previously Youth and Adults Transforming Schools Together. We're trying to shrink our name and be a little bit more memorable, but all our work has focused on the importance of the elevation of the voice of young people and their active role both in learning and in decision making. So where does this large group come from? I just want to ground your background in that. It was about 2 years ago, after our teams, for 5 years, really working on initiating change in schools, began to cry out for help around communicating. Is that the trick? Communicating change. That they were passionate, they knew there was a direction, they knew the direction aligned.
Pull it down.
Pull it down.
No, so that it's not touching the back.
So that it's... Tip it? Oh. So they were doing significant change work in schools, believed deeply in it, but they kept on running into the same issue of how to build public understanding and support for that work. They had a vision, but how could they engage the greater community, both in that vision and the work that was the means to that end? It's still doing it. So, 2 years ago, Jane Feinberg, who is a nationally renowned expert in communications development, particularly around educational change, was good enough to come to Vermont in true pioneering spirit, and we co-created a course And Peter, you talk about dual enrollment. This course, as reflected in this group, are adults who are taking a course for master's level credit, while the young people sitting beside them are taking this for dual enrollment credit, living out the vision of dual enrollment, but actually enhanced by adult partners by their side. And they took on for a year the task of how to know enough about communications theory, know enough about school change, and live into a youth adult model of actually being the change they wish to see in the world. And so that work was happening simultaneously with this remarkable legislation coming to the fore. We came to the Agency of Education with the thought that perhaps this model could be helpful as a way to build public understanding and support for exactly that visionary movement that was afoot on a policy level. And thankfully, the Agency of Education, also in partnership with the Vermont School Board Association and with the help of the Bay and Paul Foundations, were able to craft this year's work. And these 5 schools here represent the people who took on the challenge of taking this to another level and really focusing on Act 77, focusing on ways to do research and do be communicators of change, invoking conversation of the deepest questions of education in behalf of this work. So that's how we came here today. We do base our work on a 3-pronged change model. So I'm going to introduce the 3 legs of the school, and you referenced this briefly, Rebecca. It's important that it weaves together 3 disciplines. And the first one is strategic framing communications. So Jane, would you like to just introduce that piece of our work?
First of all, I'm delighted to be here today. I live in Massachusetts, and for the last couple of years, I've been traveling up to Vermont. And I have to tell you, I'm so jealous of what's happening here in terms of ed reform. I really am. I just think this piece of legislation is amazing. It is remarkable, and I look forward to seeing it spread around the country. And it's really fun to be at the beginning of something that you can see is really going to take off. So here's a quote from Nelson Polsby, the late great political scientist. He said, "Most people don't think about most issues most of the time." And what he was expressing was how difficult it is to get an issue into the public square. It's like what you said, Rebecca, you know, there's a lot of work to do from the time you finish passing legislation until it's really alive and growing and thriving in the communities. And so how to get that out there? And a story, where we human beings are wired for storytelling. Story is really the best method. And what our students have been learning this year is a type of storytelling that's not about buying or selling, but it is about, as we've been saying, building understanding and building engagement. And that is strategic framing. And what that means is we draw on research from the cognitive and social sciences about how people think and learn and understand. We look at mental models that people carry in their heads that get in the way of understanding the very kind of work that comes out of Act 77. So I am really proud of these students because it's very hard work to learn how to frame and to shift the story that's in our culture. I think we all know the old story of education, right? We're losing our lunch to other nations. So this story, of course, has been repeated in one way or another since 1958. We're losing our lunch to other nations. We got to become competitive. So let's make some tests that everybody has to pass, and that's how we're going to win the day. That's not a story that's going to work here, and it's not a story really that's been working anywhere. So how do we shift that story? And you're going to be hearing in what their presentations are all about, our students, what that new story is. I'm just going to give you a couple of the headlines. I'll give you one little headline. The world is changing, and we must change our educational delivery system as well. That's a no shame, no blame story, no fingers pointing, but it involves all of us coming to the table and understanding that there's a stake for everybody, even people who don't have kids in school, to really get behind the work. So I am just so proud of all of you for the work that you've done, and I look forward to seeing what's happening from here on.
So Jane comes here and is jealous. I come here to get healed. Indiana, if you haven't been following the news, has been one of the most regressive states in the nation when it comes to education. My grandson in 3rd grade, who has CP and Noonan syndrome, he had to take a test as a 3rd grade reader. If he didn't pass that test, he couldn't go on to 4th grade. So his very first standardized testing experience was to determine literally his future, because we know what happens to kids that get left behind in school. So it's a very personal story for me. The art of dialogue is very much about the art of listening. And that's something that we work on every time we're together. I didn't think I'd be quoting Malcolm Forbes today, but he did say the art of conversation is in listening. And just last week I had the privilege to be in Memphis, Tennessee with the Coalition of Schools Educating Boys of Color. And they brought together educators from inner city schools and boys from around the country. And the conversation between they call them old heads and young heads, talking to each other is as across with much difference as we can imagine in talking about life. And I want to share a few things about healing in its relationship to listening and to dialogue. And these words come from Dr. Howard Stevenson, who was a keynote at the conference. Dialogue occurs when two people come together to explore and share their thinking, their assumptions, as well as their multiple points of view of any particular topic of interest. The intent is not to convince other people of your own point of view, but rather to create a new shared understanding based on everyone's contribution about the topic. Hence, we shape our future together. When we're engaged in dialogue, we realize we're not learning from each other, but rather we are constructing a new way of learning together. And what do you say about listening? Listening with respect means you will bend your ears around the sounds of the word to interpret what is being said. It means you're trying to understand me, my point of view, as well as my needs and my feelings. You don't have to agree with my point of view, just listen to understand it. Understanding means you can express my point of view to others and make decisions that take my interests into account. I'm going to close with Alan Alda, another person I rarely, for those of you who know math. Yeah. Listening is being able to be changed by the other person. Thank you.
And so Daniel's training of this group around their facilitation skills, of readying them to lead faculty meetings, to lead board meetings, it's a gift. It's a gift to us. Thank you so much. The last leg of the school is Youth Adult Partnership. There is no other way to implement personalized learning and student-centered learning without young people being at the very heart of that process. Not the recipient of that process, but the very heart of it. I just want to share one quote since we're into quotes today. And this one validates that this isn't just a soft idea, but rather a concept that has tremendous integrity and power. These two authors did an extensive literature search about what are the factors that promote engagement and motivation for young people in learning. This is what they found: fostering student voice, empowering youth to express their opinions and influence their educational experiences so that they feel they have a stake in the outcomes, is one of the most powerful tools schools have to increase learning. I think the best way for this to become real is for you to hear these presentations. Each school has been charged with condensing a year's worth of work into 5 minutes, but their work is powerful, it is deep and rich and wide, and without further ado, I am going to turn it over to the Harwood team.
and I'm a junior at Harwood.
I'm Alexa Beachwinter. I'm a junior at Harwood.
Nicole Lloyd, I'm a junior.
Marcus Grace, world language teacher.
And I'm Annie Rex, I'm one of the co-principals at Harwood.
So before Act 77, only students who had the skills to navigate and were in the know were able to access multiple learning pathways. And an example of one of these students is Cole Lavoie, who recently attended the New England Secondary Schools Consortium.
Yes, I was a presenter on behalf of Harwood with a number of other peers and teachers to discuss a number of things at the consortium. One of the key components, though, that I addressed was how unique legislation back in my home state, Vermont, was helping me explore interests of mine and learning how it was shaping my education experience. So personally, I've been embarking on a year-long independent study. I'm also a student representative on the local planning commission, and now I'm exploring internship opportunities. And so, as a lighthouse, provides guidance for those who are lost at sea. Act 77, we're hoping, provide guidance for students at Harwood who are unaware of the opportunities that can be granted to them. And so, we are, and students at Harwood are extremely eager to begin the implementation process of Act 77.
So through the course, we've learned a lot about communication strategies and kind of how to implement change. And so one of the first steps is to kind of figure out what the community knows, the Harwood community. And so we sent out a survey to student, parents, and educators. And the purpose of this survey was just kind of to figure out where we should aim our campaign towards.
So part of that process is creating the communication strategy that Jane spoke of, and this represents the components of that. And Act 77 is actually the solution, but many people aren't aware of the conversation that led to Act 77. So it's really important to create a communication strategy that takes us back to the why. Why is Act 77 important, and how is it going to improve the quality of our communities through educating our youth? And one of the pieces that we use is metaphor. And just as we use the lighthouse, another metaphor is to think about Act 77 as a remodel of education. And that we're not tearing down our schools, we're actually keeping what's positive in our schools and then updating the parts that need to be updated to have students be more ready for the new world ahead of them. And one of the other pieces that we engaged in was an all-school dialogue.
So the all-school dialogue provided over 800 students, teachers, and faculty with the opportunity to share their perspectives about student-teacher relationships and relevance in learning. And so over 35 facilitators were trained for this event, and the majority of the facilitators were actually students.
And so at the end of the dialogue, we had students write down what they think were valuable action steps and put them on a Post-it note. And so one day after school, a group of us got together for many hours, and we sorted out the data into two kind of sections, and one was relevant and meaningful learning, and the other section was youth and adult relationships. And then from there, we sorted it with the most occurring ideas to the least occurring, and right now we're using this data to figure out and take the next action steps.
Needless to say, we had a lot of suggestions and a lot of actions that we want to make. We want to do something right now, so we've decided along the lines of classroom relationships between students and teachers. We are going to implement a tool that has previously been created by Youth Adult Partnership at Harwood, which is a student teacher feedback form, but also a student self-reflection exercise and document. And thinking along to next year, longer term actions, only one example is along the meaningfulness and the relevance of learning and personalization. We are trying to implement and enhance the student voice at higher level decision making situations, and that's through incorporating students on the leadership team at Harwood.
And In regards to outreach, the students and teachers in our class, we started outreach at the onset of our course. And through my blog, through Twitter, and through the local newspapers, the Valley Reporter and the Waterbury Record, we shared, each step of the process. So the premise of Act 77, the data that we collected, what we were going to do with that data, our all-school dialogue, and the next step in our outreach is that our entire supervisory union, the Washington West Supervisory Union, with the support of the Great Schools Partnership and Everyday Democracy, are starting a community engagement initiative. We had our kickoff meeting last night. All towns in our community were represented, parents, students, teachers, and administrators. And together we are not just sharing information, but truly engaging the parents and community partners in a vision of learning for our students. And that is to ensure that every student in our supervisory union is provided a personalized, high-quality education that prepares them for the future.
The next presentation will be Hazen Union.
Okay. So we're the Hazen Communication Team. I'm Carla Smith. I'm a freshman at Hazen Union.
I'm Corey Maskell. I'm a social studies teacher.
And I'm Sally McCarthy, the Director of Guidance.
I'm Dylan Merling, a social studies teacher.
I'm Dylan, number 2.
I'm Marie Vermont. I actually come from central office. I'm a member of the Hazen. And I'm Erin Zell. I work at Up for Learning. I'm also a board member in the supervisory union and Hazen alum and also a member of the communication team. We're going.
So at the beginning of this year, we sent out a survey to see what people knew about Act 77 and what we need to do to increase understanding and awareness and people's knowledge of why it's important. And we found that the community and students also hadn't been educated in that. So to work with that, we started a number of different programs. So one thing, we have now teacher-student advisories, and we're on an AB schedule, so we do that every other day for about half an hour. And we actually pulled in student reps from each advisory, and we trained them during lunch and an advisory, and we taught them about Act 77 and especially why it's important, and we had them learn activities we do to increase awareness, and then they brought those back to their advisories. So they got a really deep understanding, and they, because they also had to understand how to teach it, so they learned some of those facilitation skills, and then the other students learned about it too. So the idea is that now everyone in our school has at least a basis of understanding. So these are some of the activities we did. And then we also had a March meeting with representation from all the different schools in our district. So we had a panel of students and we had teachers there too. We did activities with them, and it was really focused on why it's important. So getting input from all the different schools in our district and showing them why this is something that will benefit all students coming into Hazen and Craftsbury. And so we did activities, and then we also had discussions with them to see what they thought.
So this was a district-wide school board meeting with all our school boards present.
And then we had an April community forum, so that was recently. So we had a presentation, and that was at our school, and we had people come and ask questions. So we had a panel you can see down in the corner, and it was a lot of discussion back and forth, their questions and their concerns, and we answered it. And again, what's really important is the why, because it's something that can really help all students, and we think it's important that all stakeholders in our school community understand that.
So we felt the need to really reach out to those community members that might not necessarily come to us. So what we did was in our local newspaper, we'll find here, and on the right you'll see that we released a series of editorials that we put in the paper about that featured one component of Act 77 and one stakeholder talking about that, and how it's very important, and what the implementation has looked for maybe their child or for themselves. And yeah, that's another way we reach out to our community.
The video.
And we have a video to show you about some of the couple things that we did this year.
Which is also on the website, but
It's also on the website.
because of internet streaming purposes and sometimes it's unreliable, we put it in our PowerPoint.
So this video hasn't been used a lot yet, but it will be. We'll be showing this to lots of stakeholders as well. We can only show you a very short snippet, so go take a look at all.
What do you know about Act 77 and flexible pathways?
I don't know much about that at all.
Act 77 is not something I know anything about.
I know nothing about Act 77.
I don't know nothing about it. Might have been a Club 77 somewhere.
We've been learning a lot about Act 77's flexible pathways.
This is how it is taking root at Hazen Union.
So we've been talking a lot about why this Act 77 is going to be important. And this is awesome. But what really gets important is how we're going to implement this into our school system.
I think this is fantastic and really good. What is going to At Hazen Union, many students are beginning to take ownership of their learning by working in partnerships with their teachers and practicing 21st century skills in real time, such as planning and leading meetings.
Opportunity to engage with a different crowd that I'm not used to.
Recently, some of us introduced Act 77 to our school board and community as a whole as part of our credit-bearing class to learn about the legislation and build our skills as collaborators, communicators, and facilitators.
All of the orange cards in a row.
In this kind of row? Like this? Row or vertical row?
Yeah, doesn't really matter though.
Teaching about Act 77 has helped us learn about the legislation. A short time ago, we knew very little. Now, we can be agents of change in our school, our community, and beyond. We're going to do another activity so that you learn about flexible pathways and then you can bring it back to all the students in your TSAs and hopefully everyone is better.
Yeah, it's partnerships with adults.
Act 77 is about making sure that all students have high-quality learning opportunities to shape their own learning experiences based on who they are and what they need in order to thrive.
I would encourage you to watch the rest of the video because it goes into each section of the flexible pathways in Act 77 and it highlights each areas from a student perspective. So, thank you.
Twinfield?
As we strive to provide the skills, knowledge, and mindsets needed for future success, we need to move away from a one-size-fits-all educational system.
we need to provide all of our children with useful skills that will improve our workforce, inspiring thoughtful, engaged citizens who will help our community reach its full potential.
The job of educating students can no longer be limited to the walls of our school.
Shaping our next 50 years together will require all members of our community to play important roles as students embrace real-world learning opportunities.
Together, we can all help remodel our school into an environment that ultimately prepares them for challenges of the 21st century.
For more information, go to www.twinfieldsoft.windley.com.
This message is brought to you by the Twinfield Union School Communications Team.
So what you just heard was the PSA that we created from our value statement. And so hello, thank you, we're Twinfield, and we are here to just share our process. So we began by giving a survey to all of our community stakeholders. So that includes parents, students, teachers, and just any other community member. And we also interviewed all of those community stakeholders to make sure we had a full picture of where everybody was at. And I'm not gonna say anymore.
I'm Bridget, I'm a junior at Twinfield. We noticed from our surveys that students were the least informed. And so our high school does a community meeting about once a month or so, and we thought that would be the best way to introduce Act 77 to our students. So we showed them flexible pathways and all these visuals about Act 77, and gave them the whole spiel, and we had an open discussion about it. But we wanted to go deeper with the students because it felt like not all the questions were answered. So we did an activity called Chalk Talk, and it's a silent activity where we posted up questions about education, and the students would reflect on it. And we also involved teachers, so it was like a collaboration. And then we went into deeper thought and answered all their questions about what they had about Act 77, and really told them what we were trying to do and tried to get them excited about it.
I'm Mark Mooney, I'm the principal at Twinfield, and I've been having ongoing dialogue with small groups of students just to get their feedback and to try to lessen their concerns about our growth and the change that's coming their way, and we're doing great things at Twinfield School.
So next year, in the continuing of our work, we're going to be having home forums with people in their homes at comfortable places, food around the table, so we can have dialogue and hear what our community is concerned about, what their questions are. And by the way, I'm Deborah Stolaroff. I'm the director of the Renaissance program at Twinfield. I also wanted to say that we also received this grant, and we're going to be continuing on with the community engagement grant from the Great Schools Partnership, and working with Everyday Democracy as well. We're looking forward to it.
I'm Samantha Leger. I'm a junior at Twinfield. And so, as an example of flexible pathways, me and Morgan and Bridget all took a dual enrollment class at Goddard College. And it was true stories, and we learned how to make audio pieces that were going to be aired on the radio. And so using that to our advantage and our skills that we learned, that was the PSA that was at the beginning that we worked really hard on.
So the website pictured here, Deborah and I worked countless hours on. We wanted this to be a resource for community members and parents to access if they had any questions or concerns. We wanted it to be easily understood, and we also have a contact page, so if parents or community members have any questions, they can easily contact us. We are very, very grateful that we got to take this class with you guys, and we learned so much. So thank you.
And the other high schools.
Yeah.
And our final presentation is from Colchester High School.
We are Colchester High School. And presenting today is Sawyer Loftus, Bob Hall, our guidance counselor, Rachel Wood, humanities teacher, Cynthia Rodriguez, and myself, Amy Stewart.
So these quotes are given to us by Colchester High School students that are taking the rollout for the Act 77. But to represent all these quotes into one, there is one student at Colchester High School, and her story has built up all of the Act 77 into one word. This student has had a hard time with education ever since her development in the elementary school. And since there, all the way up to her middle school years, towards her 7th grade year, she still had trouble trying to achieve all the goals and requirements that were put on in those grades. And she's had to go into IEPs. And with that, her mom had to go into the IEP conferences and listen to the teachers tell her that her daughter couldn't achieve these. And with that, her mom broke down and said, "What am I supposed to do? I speak Spanish and I can't teach her English." And with that, the teacher said, one day when she gets older, a light will turn on in her head and she'll have the ability to achieve her goals no matter what. And my mom asked, why? How can this light turn on if she's not achieving any of these goals? So the teacher said, one day she'll achieve it. And since then, I've had the ability to take the Act 77 into my own hands and achieve going to the Tech Center for Child Education and Human Services. And now I'm going to be teaching pre-K all the way to 5th grade because of this Act 77 that was placed. And thanks to you guys, with the hard time I've learned, I was able to achieve the goal. And with this, other students just like me will have the ability to achieve the same goals, no matter how hard they try. They'll be able to take this and achieve the goals that they would like.
So flexible pathways has not been a really new idea for Colchester High School. This timeline is a representation of what Colchester High School has been doing since the early 2000s, and even a look into the future with how Act 77 is going to combine with the future proficiency-based grading. But what Act 77 has really helped us do as a school is grant equal access to all flexible pathways to all learners in Colchester High School, as well as make sure every learner next year in Colchester High School will have a PLP. So this year, we studied and strategized ways as a group to bring in all of the key stakeholders to a place of common understanding so that we can all move forward together in this transition into a different form of education. We've also begun implementing personalized learning plans without students even really realizing it through our teacher advisory program, in which some students would meet with the guidance department and they'd conduct interest inventories, core value inventories, and also start making goals, all key components to a personalized learning plan. The thing is, students haven't been realizing that they've been actively taking a part in that yet. And then our group here, we've led the CHS faculty through a personalized learning plan visioning process, which was designed to help us condense our ideas and the teachers' ideas to create one big rollout for the fall. And we've also officially created the PLP rollout for Colchester High School for fall of 2015.
Speaking of fall 2015. So for what's next for us, in June, the Act 77 implementation team at our school, which we are a part of, will be teaching the teachers and leading a teacher in service day to further our vision of Act 77 and personalized learning plans at our school. Then further into the summer, a brave group of teachers who have volunteered to take time off in their summer and come back into school. They're going to be helping out and work out the specifics of personalized learning plans at our school, and just kind of get down the kinks and answer some unanswered questions. So we'll be ready for the fall, which is where we'll officially roll out personalized learning plans to all students at Colchester High School. And we'll do that by having 2 videos. The first one of which will be a metaphor that we created. We created both videos. Pretty cool. And this metaphor kind of simplifies personalized learning plans, and it gives an opportunity for the students to understand that this isn't being pushed on them, but that this is something that's going to help them in their education careers. And the second video is going to nail down the specifics. And you know, we're doing this because it's been needed for a long time now, not only just in Vermont, but across the nation. And I'm proud to be part of the team that's really leading the beginning of this. So thank you guys for your time.
Hard act to follow, to say the least. This work represents, I think, grassroots work that has phenomenal integrity. What they've done is created a rich bank of prototypes that any school in Vermont in subsequent years will be able to tap into, to be inspired by, informed by, and I think they have given form to the potential of this work in such a vivid and deep way. So I just, huge. While they did their work on the grassroots level, we also felt it was critical to begin to tie a statewide effort together. And therefore, Shaping Our Future Together came out of a conference, came out of this group as a think tank, was tuned at a conference in the fall. The graphics of many people who attended that conference went to a graphic designer, and we were able to launch the Shaping Our Future Together statewide initiative, the concept of a collective, something that would be synergistic with what was happening on the local level, that we could feed on a statewide level and give it that an identity that was readily approachable and warm and reinforcing of what they were doing. And the web is something that Daniel has been particularly pivotal in being able to create as part of that effort. So I'm going to turn that over to you.
Well, what we wanted to create was a kind of a one-stop shopping area, an umbrella, that anyone who's interested in Act 77, and now we've expanded it to EQS, that this is a place to go for both information, to see examples of what's already happening in schools, and to find resources nationally that help support their work. So this is the home page, and it talks about all the folks that have supported us in this work. If we could just scroll back up just the top, just to give people a sense. We have resources that were made specifically in Vermont by Vermonters. We have a toolkit that Nellie May Educational Foundation helped us support that has an extraordinary array of material that Jane Feinberg really led the initiative. And it also has a spotlight. The spotlight will be on different work that's happening across platforms and across initiatives, all in the service of student-centered learning. If you scroll down, this is the spotlight. It will change every couple of weeks with new and hot application to the work. I'm proud to announce here for the first time that our Communicating School Redesign course will be launched again this coming year, and we're just now starting to get the word out to schools. So we're spotlighting that on the home page. And then down below, you'll find different resources that both are on Vermont, but also the history, background, and principles and guidelines of both Act 77 and EQS. Spotlights on different schools, and then there's a Dear Jane, Dear Helen, and Dear Daniel column where folks who have a question around any of our realms of expertise can write to us directly. They hit it, it goes to us, and then we give them an immediate response. So a very brief overview to a very deep website.
is that the toolkit, that the particular tools and strategies that were Jane so beautifully captured around strategic framing as well as the other components has actually been adopted by the Nellie Mae website, which means we're impacting New England. That they have embraced a model that includes dialogue for change, not tops down. It includes strategic framing that's a no shame, no blame, strength-based approach. And it includes, hallelujah, youth adult partnership. That we cannot do this work when we don't have young people by our side as partners. So we are, the ripples are wide, and I think that's important to recognize that Vermont is serving in that role in this capacity. So thank you. Now.
Well, we thought it only appropriate in a day that's focused on student-centered learning to have a representative group of students and adults come up front to share their stories of this year's work. So if our panel, our personal experience panel, will please join us. We'll need 6 chairs for them. This panel just learned this morning that they'd be sharing their stories today. So what you're going to hear is from the heart. It's not prepared or rehearsed. It's based on their lived experience as being part of this course, promoting the understanding of Act 77 to their schools and communities. So the way the panel will work is each member of the panel will have 2 minutes to respond to the first question. There'll be no questions or comments. It's just your role is really to listen to them to seeking their own truth so that they can really go deep and tell you what this experience has meant to them. So we'll have 2 rounds of 1 question each, and each of the members will respond to each question. So the first question for our panel, and I'll turn to Sawyer for this question, is what was the most meaningful and important aspect of your work with your team this year?
I think the most meaningful thing that my team and we've accomplished is creating a youth-adult partnership that's not really done anywhere else outside of Vermont. Creating that important youth-adult partnership with, like on my team, we have an administrator, and we have 3 teachers, and a totally different group of students that normally would not probably talk to each other. We've come together, and we've been such a great group, and we've accomplished so much for our school. I think that is the most valuable thing we've taken away from this. And we have the tools now to go back home and do even more, even if we don't end up partaking in the class next year, because we have now the tools that we need to be able to move on in the future and help more students gain more access to better ways to educate themselves other than the 4 walls of the school.
Well, I was kind of, my biggest takeaway for me is also the youth and adult partnership, and I think that it's just a really vital thing for any change or really anything to get done. I think that students understanding teachers and teachers understanding students and understanding the administration and understanding the different perspectives of where everyone is coming from is really important in education and just learning from each other, and everyone has something important to say, and having a good relationship with your teacher or just with an adult or something is, I just think it's really important.
So I really enjoyed and thought it's really important learning how to communicate this in the legislature to students especially, because that's who's going to be affecting mostly. And it's been great to work with all these people, as she said, with different perspectives and really understand how to invest that message across. And we've been working really hard to do that because I think this is something that can affect all students really, really positively. And we were having a discussion today, and we've talked about this is something that's already kind of happening, and that's been happening without the legislature because it's kind of the natural next step for students to take what they need and just apply that, but it's not broad enough yet. It's not something that everyone knows exists to them. And so telling students who might not be as engaged in their own learning as they could be, and might not be doing all they can,
and have so much potential but don't know how to tap into it, showing them how to do that and how they can have fun with their learning and enrich themselves just as a person, not even just for like the college or getting better grades, but just becoming more like well-rounded people and global citizens, and showing people how to do that has been really powerful.
So of course, the broken record is the youth adult partnership piece. So I've been thinking quickly about what else I can say, but I do want to underscore that being equal partners with youth, and Jane described us as students. We were all students together, and I think for me that's the most meaningful piece, because when we learn together, we gain from the experience of each other's wisdom. And there was more wisdom at the table from the youth than often there are from us wise adult adults. So it's really great to have that energy and perspective. So that was hugely valuable for me, as it is in all the work that I do. I think the other meaningful piece for me that I took away was that being able to bring to our school an all-school dialogue. And that was an amazing experience that we really didn't believe we could pull off. Daniel helped us to realize we could. And just to have youth facilitators facilitate dialogues with the youth and adults in the school, and using that information to help craft our experience around helping people to use Act 77 to be able to enhance their educational experience, youth and adults in schools. And without that partnership, it's not going to work.
Before I respond to the problem, I just wanted to say the late Jimmy Valvano would say there was 3 components of a great day: to laugh at people you care about, to ponder big things, important topics, and to have your emotions bring you to tears. It's been a great day. It's been a really great day. The most important thing when I think about this year, because leadership's about relationships, and it's the relationships that I've been able to strengthen with this team of people, both teachers and students, and to feel the passion they have for wanting to take control of their education, and the selflessness to give their time to leave their school a better place. I've been inspired not only by my students and our students here, but all the students from all the schools have been inspiring. It's how we build my toolbox as we try to lead this movement toward a proficiency-based model and to win the support of our community and gain that trust.
The most meaningful thing from the work that we've done is the fact that it's never been done before. And I really enjoyed working on the same level with my teachers and Mark. Twinfield being a very small school, we already kind of do that, but making this even more formal and working toward this same big goal, and even just working with other schools, because they're working towards the same goal as well. It was really, really nice to just broaden my view to what other schools were doing and how they were doing it differently to accompany what community they were a part of. So.
Okay, can we hear it for the
we were very intentional about choosing the name of this Promoting Understanding campaign, and as you now know, the name of the campaign is Shaping Our Future Together. And so we thought it'd be appropriate to hear from our team members what are their great aspirations for the future of Act 77.
For me, what I would like to see with Act 77 is that it goes for more than just these 5 schools really succeeding in it, and it becomes something across the entire state. Because this is something, and maybe not even across the entire state, but across the entire country. Because this is something that we as a country sorely need to educate our children, to make the kids that feel disenfranchised by the system have their own say in how they learn and what they're going to learn. Because, I mean, the most important thing to me in my education is my relationship with my teachers and how I get to my grade as opposed to just my grade. And with Act 77 and how flexible my school's been, I've been able to explore that this year especially, not only in this work, but outside of this work and in my own school. It's just been a really great experience. I want other kids to experience the same feeling that I have right now of pride that I'm doing something for me that's going to actually feel like it matters in the future as opposed to just sitting in class all day.
I think for me it's just kind of amazing to think that like everyone is going to be excited about their education, and everyone's going to be curious, and everyone's going to want to learn in schools. And because I think because of Act 77, people are going to be excited about education and just the idea that you can learn what you want to learn. Like you don't have to do this, and you don't have to get an A to be able to be in the AP class or something. It's just really exciting that you can like pursue your passion, and you can go in one direction if you want, or you can go in like a million different directions. And it's just exciting to think that like kids younger than me, or like even my children, are just gonna like have a really good experience in high school, and they're not gonna be dreading going to high school.
So I think I agree someone said nationwide, and I think this is ambitious, but I think it should be even bigger than that. I think there should be something available to everyone worldwide, and I think something that's actually been really powerful about this is not just what the legislature is and how important it is for everyone, but I think that the act of implementing it has also been really educational, and I think the fact that there are students working with adults now just signifies something, and I think that's something that it shouldn't, like it's something that should be feasible for all students to be able to talk to adults about their education and wants to change, because they just, there's such a new perspective, and all students now are going to be adults in the future who have such a larger say. And so I think my goal would be that all students, everyone really knows how much power they have in their own lives and in their own education, and feels free to really discuss and work for what they believe is progressive and what they believe will benefit.
So Harwood has had flexible pathways for years and years and years, but it has been the best kept secret, and only people like Cole were able to uncover it. And no matter how hard we tried to get the word out, we still didn't have a lot of students coming to the table. And part of it, I think, was legitimacy. The idea that if I step off the traditional path, is that going to impact my future? And will colleges look at me differently? Will employers look at me differently? And I think Act 77 says that your education can be done in a really creative and flexible way, and it will open more doors and close less. And so, when we embarked on some of our work, we spoke with some students, and one student's comment just resonated with me, and she said, I've been just going through the line, taking the classes like in the cafeteria and what they serve me. And now I'm discovering that it's time for me to go a la carte and kind of figure out what it is that I want. And I think that was really powerful for me. And I want more students to be a la carte. I want more students to be creating their own journey. Because the world is ever changing, and we want those students to be ready to be contributing members, and then we all are better because of that.
One of my greatest hopes is that our community knows that we are moving forward with great intentions and love for all of our students, that we want each and every student to be successful. We want to prepare every student, that our students realize that they can build the school they want, that they are empowered to have a voice within the school, and then we kind of break down the walls of our school, that we empower our community to know that things that happen in the work study or internships or through family experiences and travel are just as important as what happens in the classrooms of our building.
My hope for the future is that students around me find the same motivation I have. Even though that I've done well in traditional classes, I hate being labeled by a number, like a grade. And I know students find that very hard, but I find a lot of purpose in my learning. I'm very self-motivated, and I just really hope that in the future students find their niche, that they know that they can take different paths and they can do what they want, and find their passion.
So we have time, a couple of minutes for any questions that you might have, and they can be for the panel or any members of the class, or they can come from the class. What questions do you have?
Please. So, I suspect you're among the best students in your schools. That's fantastic. I think a real measure of success of 77 and flexible pathways is when the most troubled students in your schools find success and are empowered to have a great education.
Anybody want to respond
Anyone
to
want to
that?
respond?
Please respond.
I'd like to respond to that because I think that we have seen that to be true too. And the panel of students, we have 15 students going to the New England Secondary Schools Consortium School Redesign Conference. And a couple of those students were our most disenfranchised students, and they spoke about their story in terms of, being freshmen and sophomores and not thinking they were going to make it until opportunities were provided for them to do internships or to take this path of personalized learning, build relationships with their teachers. And, they're some of our strongest spokespeople at school now. They are some of our greatest leaders. And they do work with some of these students here that are in this class. And I think our all-school dialogue brought that forward. This is not just about the best students. This is about all students in our community who care about each other. And it's really important that we move together with this work so that we can celebrate learning for all and success for all.
And I looked at the class to see if any others wanted to respond to you, but speaking for some members, we want to thank you for honoring the brilliance of each and every child, because for some of our students, that has not been their school history, and having the opportunity to do relevant, authentic work with partners and mentors has made a difference, has put them over the tipping point. So look, they are all brilliant, as are our children in school. And we really genuinely believe this act will give out the opportunity to uncover, recover, or discover the unique gifts, talents, and interests that each child brings to school every single day, and to apply them to any educational challenges that emerge. We believe that's the power of this act. Marcus, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that at Twinfield, we have a Renaissance program where students can choose and design a course of an area of passion, and they get linked with members of our community. As our team was saying, we have a lot of cool people in our community that can teach and give us something that we get a combined passion between the student and the mentor. And the wonderful trend is that more and more types of students are taking advantage of that opportunity. That isn't just our A or B students, that we're going to use those labels shortly at Twinfield, but it's that all students are tapping it. And our hope is, I didn't add this to my list, is that every student takes advantage and work through their own passions, and maybe through the Renaissance program, or that expands into how we run our everyday course.
Isn't there a number, a statistic of how many kids do this?
We're well over 75% of all of our graduates.
70% of all the students at Twinfield High School students engage in Renaissance studies, and it is all students. I have kids on IEPs, I have kids who are having a hard time in school, I have kids, the best kids, I have kids who can't find themselves and they just want to try something out, but it's for all kids, and they all find something.
Any other questions, please?
Sort of a comment just to thank you all for sharing, obviously for the exciting work you're doing and learning you're doing, and the ways in which you're seeding the future. It's such a relief, really, but also so inspiring to hear what's going on in this building, because so much of our conversation ends up around how much things cost. And I want to encourage you, and so many of the people who are paying the bills aren't hearing your stories. And I want to encourage you to keep telling those stories to the wider community, the way in which you did those interviews, I forget which school was interviewing, it was Craftsbury, the folks in their community. So I really encourage you to continue doing that, because that is, a lot of times you're creating forums, but most people can't come to those. So the more you reach out, and I think engaging in learning conversations with a microphone and a video is a great thing. And I think the more we can explain what people are getting for the dollars they're investing in all of your futures, the happier those people will be voting for your budgets.
Just, in terms of cost, so personalized learning actually saves us money.
That's a
And
great
so
way.
many of our community members volunteer their time to be mentors, and those that don't, the stipends are not large, and they're still willing to do the work with the kids. And because I think it's because the adults get as much from the experience as the students get. So it's this amazing relationship that is created between the students and their mentors that doesn't go away. It lasts for years and years, as part of their lives. So there's an amazing amount of wealth in that. The dollars can't, dollars become irrelevant. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there.
I would underscore that as well, as we break down the walls of school, because we really need to break them down, that the people who pay the bills are only going to be working alongside our students in those learning opportunities, where students are in internships or apprenticeships, and they're going to have an opportunity to learn directly from those kids, the value of learning and how important it is to learn in lots of different ways. And so they're the best spokespeople and working alongside. So the more we have students out of the community, the better off we're all going to be.
I would just like to close with gratitude. Gratitude for a state that passes incredibly progressive legislation. I also want to express gratitude to the Agency of Education. Tom, John, I wish you could be here. Karen. Absolutely, and Rebecca, who have, they were courageous to say this work mattered last year, to invest in a statewide campaign with this form that was evolving, to trust in partnership as one integral piece that would be so unique to drive this work forward. I mean, that was an incredibly courageous and deeply appreciated act. And I hope today you've been able to see some of the fruits of that effort. I think this is only the beginning. I think that this work has been seeded. It is taking root. There could not be better gardeners for this to grow it in our state. The movement is building, a movement that people like Fred Bay and others, the Vermont School Board Association, are there at the ready to continue to nurture. So many people have contributed to this. Thank you so much. And yes, thank you. We have a few for those from the legislature and the Agency of Education. We do have a thank you for, if you could come over here.
Before everybody